finish off our tech forum with just a quick update on genomic technology and our genetic evaluations and research and development projects that I didn't talk to you about. I talked to you at length about the HIR project because it is just so incredible, but it's not the only project that we've been working on in the last year, and we haven't really had the opportunity to have convention or give you any of the updates from the office, so we thought we'd take this opportunity to do so. Just stop me at any time if you have any questions. So one of the things we'd like to let our members know about is registration requirements for imported animals globally. There have been some changes recently from other Angus associations globally that precipitated this. And so what we've done is we've reached out to Angus associations that typically are members on marketing Angus genetics in, Canadian Angus genetics in, and these associations are trying to register Canadian Angus genetics in their herd book. And we want our members to know what their requirements are so that you know ahead of time what their requirements are and you're not frustrated after the fact. There have been some significant changes, as I said. The biggest one is at the American Angus Association. So the American Angus Association Board of Directors just approved recently that imported Angus animals, to be eligible for registration in their herd book, need to have parent verification, an Angus GS test, genetic condition testing for all genetic conditions, and a physical DNA sample on file at AGI. Another change that they made is previously, if you had a black animal that you were trying to register in their herd book, if that animal had a red animal or a red carrier in that pedigree, an ancestor, that animal was not eligible for registration. That has changed, and as long as that animal is coat color tested and is homozygous black, that animal is now eligible for registration in their herd book. It does need to be coat color tested, Angus GS tested, parent verified, tested of all genetic conditions, and have a physical DNA sample on file at AGI. Now, because we have such a close working relationship with them, we've organized with them that you can get all of that facilitated through the Canadian Angus Association. So you can do all your testing through your own association. We will send that information over to them, and our friends at Neogen Canada, because we use Neogen Canada for our lab and they use Neogen in the US for their lab, our friends at Neogen Canada will organize to have a portion of that sample sent to AGI for you, okay? So we'll help, but it's best that you know these requirements, because otherwise what happens is Canadian Angus genetics are marketed into another country, and you're really happy, your customers are really happy, and then they go to try and register, and then there's a frustration because you didn't anticipate the requirements of that breed association. So we've compiled what we know, we'll put it on the website, it'll be in our communications, and we'll try and keep this updated as things change. Angus associations in Europe have all moved to requiring Angus GS testing or high density testing. So if you're marketing genetics, Canadian Angus genetics in Europe, if you're going to go and register those animals in their herd book, they will require genetic condition testing, Angus GS testing, full parent verification. So best to just do it ahead of time so that it's done and then you're not frustrated, or your customer is not frustrated when it comes to trying to register in their herd book. Okay? Any questions? Good. Some updates on DNA technology. I'd like to introduce to you Michelle Miller and Nikki from Neogen Canada. They're in the green at the back there. Okay. Maybe it's me standing on the cord. Sorry, Mark. I can give you a heart attack.
Michelle and Nikki have a booth on the patio. If you haven't tried a TSU, that's a tissue sampling unit for your DNA samples, Nikki and Michelle are giving away TSU starter packs. It comes with a TSU gun and a pack of 10 TSUs for you to try your hand at it. Once you've tried it, honestly, it's so easy. You might decide that that's the way you're going to go for your DNA sampling. But let me tell you some updates about parent verification. So when we moved to SNP technology, ISAG had recommended 100 SNPs. And so that's what we used. We used 100 SNPs. They're selected specifically for parent verification. Recently, the recommendation grew to 200 SNPs. And so Neogen Canada automatically changed our parent verification testing to 200 SNPs. Didn't cost you more, but you have more confidence in your test results because we're using more markers for your test results. The other thing Neogen Canada did is now automatically, when you submit a sample for parent verification, we also test or check for the sex of that animal. Didn't cost you anything extra, but it sure helps if something's not looking right, the parent verification is not working right. We can say, actually, I think you got a sample from the wrong animal, or maybe we've recorded the wrong animal, or we labeled the sample with the wrong tattoo because you're saying that this is for a female animal and actually the sample is from a male. So it helps us problem solve. The other thing that we should update you on is turnaround time. I know through COVID, there was big challenges with the turnaround time and it was frustrating. The lab has recommitted to a 21-day turnaround time. That's calendar days from the time that they receive the sample. Now, one thing to tell you, if you go to their booth, Michelle and Nikki have some examples of sample submissions that they receive that really impact turnaround time. 32G, no address, no name. It's hard for them to determine who sent that sample and who 32G is and what to do with it. It means they have to call us and say, I don't even know if it's Angus, but it's black, so I'm starting with you. Do you know who 32G is? It comes from, I don't know, Westlock, you know? And then we have to call our members and find out that impacts your turnaround time. So if you want to know what's the best way you can help yourselves have great turnaround time, please go visit Nikki and Michelle at their booth and they'll give you examples. I know it's not on purpose. I know it's sometimes you're in a rush. I've written shoot side notes myself, you know, 32B. I don't need to put my own tattoo on, I know, but then you forget to add that on the label when you send it to the lab. You don't do it on purpose, but it really slows them down, okay? Some updates with Angus GS testing. That panel too has grown. So we used to do 50K, you all know that. Everybody knows the word 50K. The panel's expanded. We added more markers. Remember when I told you about HIR testing and I said one part of the project is that we genotyped all these animals and we're going to see if there's markers that actually help us explain differences in immune response? Well, we do that kind of research all the time. And even if we don't know exactly what gene, we have markers that help explain these things. So we add them on the panel. So now this is a 770K panel. Okay, just means that we can give you more accurate predictions. And as the technology gets better and less expensive, we can do that. The price didn't change for you, but we expanded the panel. The Angus GS panel also includes the 200 SNPs that we use for parent verification. So if you get Angus GS, you also get parent verification. I did want to talk to you about turnaround time for your Angus GS test results though. So the lab gets the sample, and say the lab gets the sample, what's my example here, September 2nd. It takes them 21 days to read that genetic sequence, A's, G's, T's, and C's. So the results that they give back to us, 21 days. Those results then have to go into the genetic evaluation for us to actually give you the results you're looking for. The GEPDs, the genomically enhanced EPDs, more accurate EPDs, and your genomic percentile ranks. So really, if you look at this timeline, if you submit samples in September, like September 2nd, you're getting the results you're interested in November 2nd. So just want to make sure that members are aware of this, because some members don't give themselves enough time and then cause a lot of stress for themselves. My catalog's ready to go to print and I really want to include these numbers, but I didn't leave myself enough time. And I don't want you to be disappointed, and I don't want you to be stressed. So just to let you know that that is the timeline. Okay, so that's updates on genomic technology. I'd like to give you some updates on our genetic evaluations. Just to continue with this timeline thing, our genetic evaluations run once a month. The cutoff date for data to get included into the genetic evaluation is the 15th of every month. Okay, so 15th, all the data comes in. We start the genetic evaluation, we prep it all. It's our data and all of American Angus Association's data. It's a lot of data to handle. We prep it all, we do the genetic evaluation, the results are released the first weekend of the next month. So say in this case, the 3rd. So if your Angus GS testing gets finished on the 17th, guess what? You missed that genetic evaluation. Now you have to wait till the 15th of the next month to get your results in January. Now, we understand that sometimes this is okay. You can plan for this and you can deal with it. Sometimes it's not okay. Bull sale season time. When do those calves come in? Sending those samples. So Miles has heard that and has worked out with our service providers that we will have 3 extra genetic evaluations a year. So in December, January, and February, we'll have an extra evaluation. So if you did miss that 15th deadline in December and your Angus GS test results were ready on the 17th, instead of having to wait till January 2nd, you'd get your results the mid-December. So hopefully that helps manage that stress in a time when you can't maybe, do something ahead of time. Okay? So that's one thing. Another thing that's changed with genetic evaluations is the number of traits that you have genetic evaluations for. This past year, we added 8 new traits that we evaluate for you. So I wanted to make sure that all of you know about these traits, you understand what the EPD is describing, and you know how to use the EPD. So residual average daily gain. How much more an animal will gain based on constant amount of feed. So you feed me and you feed Earl the same amount of food. One of us grows more than the other one, okay? You're gonna wanna know which one. Docility, it's a big deal to a lot of our members. You heard from Jeff about One Cup AI's cameras and Betsy being able to score foot scores, so foot angle and claw set. That data is exciting to us because that data is going to drive our genetic evaluations for claw set and foot angle. Our number one factor that impacts profitability is fertility. We now have a heifer pregnancy EPD. This describes for you the probability that a first-time heifer will get pregnant in your breeding season. The higher the number, the higher the probability she gets pregnant. It's a really good EPD, right? You all spend a lot of time, and these lovely ladies here enter it all for you, submitting your exposure information, right? Every female gets exposure information. And sometimes members call me and say, do I really have to put this in? And I say, no, it's absolutely optional, but this is the result. And then it's worth putting in. Because if you can measure fertility for your females, that's worth it. We have mature weight and mature height. There's a lot of programs, Doug will tell you, that are watching that, you know, their cows don't get too big. This is an important tool for them. If you have any questions about how to use each individual one, I'm happy to help. Just let me know. That's a lot of traits, and that's a huge evaluation. I want to show you, just to give you an impression of how much data actually informs our genetic evaluations. This is the biggest genetic evaluation for beef cattle globally. So this is all our data, Canadian Angus data, and American Angus Association performance data. Performance information, pedigree information, and genomic information. We put in 9.4 million birth weights into the evaluation. We have heifer pregnancy, we have docility, we have feet scores. Those feet scores, they're from Canadian Angus members, American Angus members, and Australian Angus members. It's the first global evaluation for feet where we've been able to combine information so that we have more data. Yeah, Earl.
You say 9.4 million birth weights.
Yeah.
So where's 9.4 million calves? Is that right? Birth weights?
Yeah, so don't forget, it won't be just this year's calves. It'll be, yes, historic. Yes. Everything that's relevant. So everything that contributes to an evaluation. Okay. And so in July this year, we hit 1 million genotypes. So we have 1 million animals in the evaluation that are genotyped. What I'm getting at, and what this slide tells you, what this information should tell you, is our genetic evaluations are very accurate. There's a lot of data that goes into the evaluations. And the point of that is to give you accurate predictions of genetic merit. Okay, that's a lot of traits though to balance. And it's hard to balance so many traits, especially when some of them are antagonistic. Some of them don't have the same impact as other ones. And sometimes it's the one time that you're looking at them in the whole year. You know, when the other guys just outbid you for the bull that you wanted, and now you have to make a decision. There's a lot of adrenaline and coffee and donuts in your system, and you have to look at all of those traits and decide. And you know what most people will do? I'm just going to look at the birth weight. Or maybe I'll look at the birth weight, the yearling weight, and the marbling. But there's no way you can manage more than 3 numbers in your head at one time. So the most responsible thing to do, this is the most sophisticated way to use EPDs, you create an economic index. So I'd like to present you with our new Canadian Balanced Index. It's an economic index. So Bob told me the most frequent question he gets about the index is, well, who decided which traits go in the index and how much they're weighed? So let me tell you, there's a difference between what you know as an index historically, what American Angus Association brought out almost 10 years ago, what the dairy industry brought out. Those indexes were not economic indexes. So the weighting of the traits was not based on the market. I'm not even stepping on the, I'm sure it's not for me. They're not looking for me, right? An economic index, the weights of the traits are based on market. So it's market inputs, your costs and your revenues. So hopefully that helps you understand and appreciate the index. It's based in a Canadian market. It's not an American index. It's based in a Canadian market based on the average commercial producer operation. Okay? The index helps manage antagonisms. It helps you not single trait select. And one of the most sophisticated things about this index is the traits and the values, they're not even linear. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. There. So I'll take calving ease for an example. Once you have 100% calving ease, there's really no point in having more, right? Because you're probably giving something up, probably growth. So there's no point in having more calving ease once you have 100% calving ease. So if you have a minus 15 calving ease or a minus 10 calving ease, and you add that, you increase that to a plus 2 calving ease, your index will go up too because you're adding value, right? After 20, you're not adding value. You're not pulling more calves. So your index isn't going to go up anymore. Same with milk. It's curved. As you get more milk, your index goes up. But after a while, you're not adding anything to your calf's weaning weight. You're just costing yourself in feed. So your index doesn't go up anymore. So it helps you manage things with thresholds. I think that's really, it's like one of the, like I told you with the HIR, you know, there's really a lot of benefits to using good tools and good technology. And our goal is to give you a really well-designed index. So I missed a slide about what an index is, just in case people don't know. It's just one number EPD. It's just one number made up of a lot of traits. So it's the EPD for trait 1, weighted by the economic value of that trait in a Canadian market at a commercial operation, plus the EPD of trait 2 weighted for that trait, okay? What are the traits that are included in the index? Yes, Doug, you had a question.
It's an economic index, so how often is that index adjusted? And what I'm thinking about is the price of market
Yeah.
going through the roof. Is that economic aspect featured in your
Yes.
trying not to intake, how does that affect the index?
Yeah. So Doug's question was a really good question. He said, if it's an economic index, how often are the economics or the market values in there updated? So the economics that we used to model the index, so all the inputs, cost of feed, that we use to model these traits are a 5-year average. So for example, this year, prices and market values might be quite different, but you don't want that to completely skew your index. So it's a 5-year average, and it's a rolling average. So every year, that 5-year average is updated. So you don't see a huge change. You're not going to see swings in the index, but it is going to follow market values. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I said that it's the new Canadian Balanced Index. It helps you select for balanced cattle. It includes both maternal and terminal traits. How would you use it? Well, EPDs are in units of the trait that they describe, right? In this case, this EPD is describing economics. So in this example, for example, Bull A's Canadian Balanced Index is $250. Bull B's is $150. So a difference of $100 per calf for that sire. So it's based on a per calf Canadian dollar unit. Okay? Should be pretty simple. It simplifies things. So when I was talking to Bob, he said, how do I explain this to members? And I said, you know, if you're looking at a sale catalog, looking at benchmark sale catalog, there's a lot of numbers in your sale catalog, Doug. It's a lot for some people. It can be intimidating. Use the Canadian Balanced Index just to give you your top 10 bulls. And there's a lot of ways that a bull can have that 250 index, right? He could have it because he has different numbers than another bull, but still have the same 250 index. So say you have 10 bulls that all have the index you're looking for, but you really also you're working on mature weight. That's what we were talking about yesterday. You can look at the individual EPD for mature weight then. Pick the bull that had the index you like and the mature weight EPD that you like. Or if you're working on milk or feet, you can still see the individual trait EPDs. And you can still select for them, but this helps you get your top 10. We did a very extensive rollout for the index. Members who had animals that qualified for the index, I called all of them, shared their index with them, and then called them, got their feedback, answered their questions. And I just want to share with you some of the feedback that we got from members, from your peers, so that you know it's not just me sitting behind a desk telling you this is really good stuff. This is members' feedback saying, you know what? I think this is going to work for me. This makes things easier for me. This is going to work for my commercial customers. This makes things easier for them. This is going to stop single trait selection. This is going to help me balance things. So I told you that there's all these traits included in the index. That means if your animal is going to get the index, they need to have EPDs for all these traits. I'll let you look at the traits. It's a long list. If your animal doesn't have carcass quality EPDs, for example, your animal can't get the index because it'll just be half the index and then it'll just look like a really low number. That's not the right thing to do, right? So your animal needs to have EPDs for all of these traits in order to get the Canadian Balanced Index. Now you might not have all of these traits recorded on an animal. You might not be able to ultrasound scan your animal and get those carcass quality EPDs. There is another way to do it. You can Angus GS test your animals. And we have we're so lucky. We have a really good relationship with Agri-Food Agriculture Canada, and we have some funding that allows you to Angus GS test your animal for $25. We will pay the rest. The condition is you do need to supply or provide or record. So please measure and record the new phenotypes that we need on mature cattle. So if you record mature weight and body condition score on your cows, and most people do this, and then I think some members do this, but we never used to collect it, so it could be that you already have this. We're just letting you know, please submit it. Okay, mature weight and body condition score. It needs to be collected within 45 days of weighing your calves. Mature foot angle and claw set, docility, and then when you're calving, teat and udder score. If we have all of those traits recorded for a cow, you can Angus GS test her for $25 until we run out of funding. Okay. Quickly, that was updates on our genetic evaluations. If you have any questions, you can grab me later on or stick your hand up. I'm happy to help. HIR testing isn't the only research project that we're working on. We just want to give you an update on what else we're doing. The Canadian Angus Foundation supports our R&D, and so we want to let you know about it. There's a legacy sale about to happen. Is it started? It started? So that's what you're supporting when you support the legacy sale. History, juniors, and R&D. So let me tell you what we do with some of your investment. I've been telling you, please Angus GS test your animals. This is the benefits of Angus GS testing your animals. Well, remember when I talked to you about HIR and I said, The best thing about this project is actually validating it for you so that when you say, does this tool really work? I can say, yep, we validated it for you. We used commercial animals at cow-calf producers, and at the feedlot, we saw they got less sick if they were high HIR. Same thing. So we took some commercial calves, about 3,000 of them, and I looked for all their sires, about 142 sires. So not a big project, just a small project, just to show you. I grouped the sires into low, high, and medium performance. So low performance sires, high performance sires, medium performance sires. And I just compared a few traits. These are commercial calves, so a few traits that commercial folks record. That's a lot of difference. That's almost 50 pounds difference between the high performance sires calves at weaning and the low performance sires calves at weaning. And at yearling, 100 pounds difference, actually 101, but 100 pounds difference. So the GEPDs, the genomically enhanced EPDs that I was telling you about, they are predictive. They do actually tell you. These commercial guys didn't know we were going to do this with their data. This is how their calves performed. So those EPDs, they are predictive. And the genomic technology, it is working. Another project to just give you an update on, you know that fertility is the primary factor to profitability. We want those calves calving earlier in the season. You know the benefits of that. They're going to rebreed better. You're going to have bigger calves at weaning time. Our commercial producers appreciate that. I just told you about the heifer pregnancy EPD. But we know that the correlation between male fertility and female fertility isn't one. It's not the same thing. So if we want to improve fertility in our population, we can't just use the heifer pregnancy EPD. We need to also have a tool to describe male fertility. There's 3 determinants of male fertility. If you read Angus Life magazine, or if it's still on your coffee table, I have an article about it from an interview that I did with Dr. Atkins. There's libido, the willingness to breed. There's physical soundness of the bull, his ability to breed. And then there's semen quality. And there's a lot of factors in semen quality that impact that semen quality score. There's motility, there's abnormalities, there's concentration, and there's volume. You all record this anyway when you semen test. Your vets record this for you. So we have a 5-year project. It's funded by USDA. It's in partnership with the American Angus Association. We want to look at what can we do to describe male fertility. Now you have an EPD for scrotal circumference, and we use that as an indicator for daughters age at puberty. We use that as an indicator of maturity for bulls. But we actually know that there's a high correlation of scrotal circumference and weight. This is our own data, about 140,000 scrotal scores from our evaluation, and weights. And you can see that the weights track exactly with the scrotal scores. When we look at scrotal circumference and all those things I told you about for semen quality, there's no correlation. Look at those correlations. They're like 0. There's no correlation between scrotal circumference and volume, concentration, mobility, or abnormalities. Scrotal circumference is not a good indicator of actual semen quality. It might tell you that a bull is mature enough, but it doesn't tell you the quality of his semen. But you already test all your bulls for semen quality. So can we use that to develop an indicator for male fertility. So that's the objective of the project, is to give you a tool for male fertility. So the goal is to use data that you already collect in your semen tests, in your semen testing, and see, can we find heritability for these traits? So if you have your semen test report, you don't have to type it up in a different spreadsheet or anything like that. Just take a copy and send it to me, and I'll do the rest. Any questions about that? Okay, so that's a great question, Rick. You saw how many data points go into the evaluation, right? That's a very, very, very accurate evaluation.
So you wouldn't start trying to estimate heritability on a new trait without at least 5,000 or 6,000. And the more linkage there is between those animals, the better. The more representative they are of your actual herd that you're trying to do this in, or the population you're trying to do this in, the better. So the long and short of it is, the more data we have, the better we'll do, the more outcomes we'll have from the project.
So will you accept semen papers like from 10 years back?
Yes, yes. As long as those genetics are still relevant in our population, those results will still help us estimate good heritability and develop a good genetic evaluation for the trait. I really believe fertility is something that, I mean, it impacts all of us. What's the point of a good calf if you have no calf, right? So I think we need to do this to advance our genetic evaluations and what we select on. So a lot of members have already sent me their semen test scores, but if you haven't, and like Blake said, if you have them for previous years too, send them to me. You don't have to type anything up, just take a picture, or if you have a copy, just send them to me, and then we'll do the rest. We'll enter all the data, compile it all, and start the analysis. Any other questions? Any questions about genetic evaluation? Okay, then, yes?
Why do you always have trouble figuring out what to use? Is it the DMI, the dry matter intake?
Yeah.
I realize it predicts appetite.
Yeah.
Animals are eat more, but does it also factor in what that animal does with what it eats?
No, that's why you noticed I took lots of time to explain RADG, which takes into account DMI and growth. You always want to use DMI with growth so that you're not just selecting for animals that eat less, right? Because, well, I don't want to use an example, but Clinton eats less than I do. But if I just tell you that, that's not necessarily telling you who's a better doer, right? So RADG is always my way to go because it combines both. If you want to do it in your head, if you can do that, then use DMI with yearling weight or with another growth trait, but don't use DMI on its own. Okay?
What's the point of having it at all?
That's a good question. We can talk about that.
So you want a bigger number or a smaller number?
For RADG, you want a bigger number because it's pounds of gain on constant amount of feed.
Yeah.
So you want a bigger number.
Oh, with DMI?
DMI, you can just cover your one eye and pretend it's not there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if